to go for the other somewhere else.
The worst was this.
This is I
had to get this. Was $20
for an eighth. It was on special though.
It was happy hour.
Hey, by the way, everything is on special there.
And this was
okay. We saw some branding.
We gotta explain what that is.
You should put this video to the candy dispenser. It's candy dispenser, but with weed in there. You twist a little thing, and then there's other candy dispensers there.
Oh my God.
They were getting away with stuff with it was like
we're Jug Dealers, we're the podcast you need in your feed, teaching the game like you never seen. Jerin, Gabe, GRAMBO, true OGs, masters of the globe, set your mind free. From Denver, Colorado, where the data's green, we set the data points for the SOPs. Jug Dealers Podcast, yes indeed.
Hey guys, quick announcement before we get started. This week is the Jug Dealers 420 sale. So if you guys ever want to try anything from Slicium, New Millennium Nutrients, Scietetics products, they're all 20% off, 418 through 422. It's a 5-day 420 sale. That's a lot of 4s, a lot of 20s, 20% off, 420, 420% off. April 18th to Tuesday the 22nd. Go over to jugdealers.shop and get yourself some discounted nutrients. Happy 420, y'all. Enjoy the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jug Dealers Podcast, where we discuss all things cannabis and lifestyle related. Brought to you by the good people at 5E, and as always, available at jugdealers.net and jugdealers.shop.
Yes.
Where do we go for the samples?
Yeah, and actually pretty similar, but jugdealers.net/samples. Then if you scroll down the page a little bit, you will see a tab to hit. You'll fill out a form. Gives us a little more information about your grow. Either, typically Gabe or I or somebody in the office reviews that personally, and then we work on getting you whatever's going to work best for you. And then, of course, we also have the bookings page up, and so either seeing where we're going to be out and about, so you'll see our calendar, our active calendar there. As you can see, we were just on the East Coast. That's what we're going to be talking about. But also, if you want to request us being at your event, coming by your shop, coming by your grow, anything like that, that's a great place to reach out to us.
Judging your competition and,
competition judging. We're very good at that.
And not for nothing, we'll come consult on your facility as well. If you need lights, anything like that, nutrient,
all of that, and everything in between.
Part of the program.
And in fact, that's a big part of what we were doing last week. So this is going to be a fun show. I'm actually excited for this because we're going to talk about, which is funny because you're going right back out to the East Coast. So it's kind of an East Coast wrap up, but then a double down on an East Coast shout out because you are going to be back out there for the Billies. And I guess we can kind of shout out the Billies if you want.
Let's go through the listener shout outs.
Okay. Why don't you start? Why don't you start with the listener shout outs?
So big shout out to Dread.
Big shout out.
You know who
big
you are.
Shout out.
But he, really cool story. He reached out to us through, he actually just reached out to us through the comments on one of the shows.
So not through the bookings page, although, so there's more one way to get to us. Although the bookings will get you a little more direct to us. But yeah, I got to kind of give it to my guy GRAMBO and my guy Gabe here, just in the fact that they were in the comments, they were paying attention. We can't always
take a look,
Yeah. We can't always guarantee that we're going to show up, but at the same time, don't think we won't.
Yeah,
we might just pull up on you. And that's exactly what we did on Dread. And we're actually going to go through that whole portion of the trip in a little bit. But big shout out to Dread.
I'm just putting it together. That was the reservation.
Yeah.
You guys are going to want to stay tuned for this. This is a weird story.
This is a great story. Because I'm going to be really honest. Like, everybody who has reached out, who we have met, if you think about Trike Farms in Spain, everybody that we've met and hung out with, we have had the coolest time. We've had the best experiences. And people have really wanted to show us the nitty gritty.
I call it freestyling. And a lot of times I get in these situations where whether I'm traveling with Gabe or Jair or whoever, people are like, okay, so where are we going? I'm like, well, I'm going to be real honest with you.
We're going to see what happens.
This is a freestyle. We're going to see what happens. However, historically speaking, these things have gone well for us. And so we're going to kind of try and keep that streak going. Second shout out to our boy John there at the Roaring 420s Lounge in Buffalo, New York.
Super cool.
Secondary
cool
kind of shout out to our guy, Mike Yosina as well, who's involved with that too. And dude, super cool. We'll talk about it a little more in depth, but the only smoking lounge in the entire city of New York, and it's in downtown Buffalo.
State of New York.
State of New York. Did I say city of New York?
Well,
I know. But it is state of New York. It is state.
I was confused on that because what about the Astro Club?
That's not official, my friend.
Okay. Okay.
Shh.
Yeah, and the cool thing about those guys too. We'll save it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Have a section
and then why don't you give a shout out to your boy Lou and the whole Gene Traders thing?
Big shout out to Lou. Big shout out to the Gene Traders event. Everybody who came up to us. I mean, we had from walking outside down the street. We actually had a couple kids, and they're like, "Dude, aren't you guys the Jug Dealers?"
Indeed, we are.
And then
that's pretty sweet.
And then I actually had a guy come up. I had a guy came up to me at the event and starts talking to me about masonry. Because you know what? And actually, as I'm thinking that too,
I don't want to forget this, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but that is very cool because we talk about it. That means you actually talk.
Yeah.
Papa Homegrown, we got to meet very briefly. You had reached out before that. I was glad to be able to meet you in person at the event. So shout out to Papa Homegrown as well. He's always been a long time listener, DGC guy as well, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mr. GRAMBO?
There's a lot of crossover there.
There's a lot of crossover. And then I would be very remiss if I don't give a special and specific shout out to our friend Vanessa with Bio365. She showed us, a ton of hospitality, was able to help get us into some additional situations and some opportunities there, on the East Coast. So she ran around with us for a couple of days.
And she got to show you the local pubs down in Seaside.
She did.
Seaside
Yeah. We were
That's
right
real
there.
Jersey right there.
We were in Jersey, baby, right there on the shore.
That was real Jersey.
Bio365, those guys are the homies. Donnie, shout out to Donnie, and really that whole crew. But special shout out to you, V, Vanessa. Keep doing your thing. We really appreciated your hospitality and your time with us. So we can be a bit of a rowdy bunch. So thanks for putting up with us. But anyhow, I guess why don't you talk about real quick about some of the events that we have going on, whether we're going to be there or not. I know you got a couple things you wanted to specifically mention.
So a couple events that are going on. Growers Paradise. Sam actually was just calling me now, but Growers
Were your ears burning, Sam?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm sure he was actually calling to tell me the times. But Growers Paradise.
We'll update it.
Growers Paradise is doing an event at their store. They're right outside of Richmond, Virginia. They're a preferred vendor of ours in that area on 4/19. So that's Saturday.
Yeah, that's this week, right?
That's next week.
Well,
next
as
week.
this episode goes out.
With this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Today's the 15th, Gabe.
That's this week, Gabe.
Today's the
15th.
Yeah, that's right. So when this episode drops, it'll be this coming weekend. But Growers Paradise is doing an event there. Obviously, I will be at the Billy's, which is Fletcher's event in New York City. That is at Pier 5, I think it is.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. I'm sad to miss it. I've got a big hike coming up the week after. I thought it was best for me to continue to get my mind right.
Why don't you go take a hike? Huh?
Yeah, why don't you take a hike? Well, so I won't be in New York,
for you, though.
I'm excited as well, and I'm also glad you're going back out to the Billy's. That's going to be a great event. You were there last year.
Yep.
Shout out to Fletcher. He obviously is a supporter of ours, and we're a supporter of his as well.
Fletcher is the man, and what he's doing is really cool.
And why don't you let GRAMBO announce this next one?
I mean, you guys, we push it hard. The DGC Cup is coming up in June. It's in about 55 days or so, and
who's counting?
Gabe is he's submitting. So Terpenes Kyle is running it with him and taking tops, and I will be helping out myself. And the Jug Dealer guys are coming to the Cup, and Gabe's entering. You're entering some hash.
I will be entering. I might even enter some flour.
Concentrate, please.
Yes. Concentrate. Yeah.
The rules are changing. We'll see. I think YouTube's softening on the cannabis scene.
We'll see.
That's good.
We're gonna push that here in a little bit. So
we want to talk about some that we saw at the.
But I am excited. Event. It seems like for whatever reason, it always ends up on a bad weekend for me, even though it's in my backyard. So we are going to have a booth. I believe we're going to be there all 3 days.
And it's a little bit. It's a new location. It's not at Ravensdale anymore. It's over in Longmont now. So it's
both days at Longmont.
Yes, everything's going to be over there.
Nice. And where do you have an address? No, so if you want to put it out there, no. Okay.
DGCcup.com. You can go figure it all out.
Yeah. But we will be there, and we are excited about that. So, also quick shout out to Terpenes Kyle, who will be running the concentrate category.
I get excited anytime the Jug Dealers and the DGC mix up. That's always I feel at home. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's a recipe for success. Let me tell you.
I want to do a quick store shout out to Buffalo Roots. Those guys. The hospitality was amazing.
Next level.
John, took us to his wife's restaurant, which was next level. They're one of,
and I think it'll be in here later, to be honest with you. I think we have both of them in here, but special shout out to both Buffalo Roots and for the hospitality with John and Mike as well at Harvest Moon. I think we're going to talk a little bit specifically about both of those, but all right, let's get into this stuff. Let's get into the real look. We got some nitty gritty. We got some dirty. We got some not so pretty stuff we're going to talk about. We saw the ups and downs. We saw the lefts and rights. We were on the East Coast.
We saw some things.
We were in the city. We were out on Long Island. We were down on the Jersey Shore, and we were all the way out into the burly Buffalo.
This is the most amount of time that you and I have spent in New York, I think, since I've worked.
I would agree with that. Normally, we're kind of passing through, especially the city. We stayed in Jersey City. We stayed over in Brooklyn. We got to hang out with some good friends. Man, we really saw a bunch of different stuff. But it started with Gene Traders, right? So for those of you that don't know, man, this is a pretty, not only a ballsy event, but definitely like a well put together event.
And Lou gets it. Lou, it's about. Lou Pino. So, he's a guy who grew up in Connecticut. He's done a lot of things. We're actually going to have him on the show, but the competition that he had was best of sour, best of chem. You know what I mean?
So cool. I can't. That's next level.
Let me tell you, sour lives, friends.
Oh, sour is a lot.
Sour
it's funny.
Lives.
So cool.
It's funny to see the differentiation in palates between the West Coast and the East Coast because
I didn't see any purple weed.
Yeah, this whole event was
just blue weed.
Was green weed.
Well, that was different. That's a whole different thing.
The blue weed was a different place. That was a different place.
Keep listening. That's coming up.
Literally, it was all green and it was so cool. It was real diesel. That LMNOZ that we got from Mike at Hippo, Sour Family Farms.
But yeah, both New Terp City and Mike.
Mike, that's right. We got two different versions of it. And Mike had that. He also had that sour that he showed us that I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So guys, not only does green weed live, not only is this real diesel and real sour live, but like it was a whole pop-up event of it. So also though, however, Jair was able to find not only some aged full melt water extract, he was also able to find some really good, like long flowering sativas. So there was a variety.
When I back in the hustler days.
Hey everybody, didn't want to interrupt the flow of conversation, but did want to remind you that the best way you can support us and go over to jugdealers.shop and buy any of the products that we talk about on this show. Of course, you can find Scietetics, you can find New Millennium, you can find Playgrin, you can find DLI. Go ahead and go over jugdealers.shop. Now back to the show.
When I back in the hustler days, where he got that from, I used to get very similar products.
Sure.
So it's a place called Grass Valley, California, in Nevada City. You and I,
real intense sun.
Well, you've always been keen to talk about the terroir of certain areas, Indeed. Much like Napa Valley, much like Bordeaux, much like Humboldt, for different crops. Grass Valley, I've been going to Grass Valley for almost 20 years now, and the product that comes out of there is very, very special. This was, the stuff that he had was, I think, 2 years old.
It was between 1 and 2, I believe.
Yeah,
between 1 and 2 years old.
Soft. Just absolutely beautiful,
workable, pliable. Here's the thing. When you have an extract like that, and you get a good water extract, and you put some water and some pressure, and you get some of those oils out, it becomes a bunch of little pieces that are kind of slammed together to like one piece. And to me, that's kind of the difference of what happens when you're talking about either a dry sift or even like full melt that isn't really aged. It's a bunch of little pieces together, so it's just not quite acting as one yet. And when you really get that aged aspect, to me, it makes a transition.
It's funny. It's almost like everything Piatello wants to be, kind of
like a little bit.
I don't mean that to sound bad towards Piatello.
No. And it's interesting because those differences, and obviously the aging process is part of the big thing with the Piatello, right?
It was it's had such an earthy incense kind of,
it reminds me of that Nepalese hash or that Nepalese incense, or that what I'll call even like the incense, incense gene, where it'll put that certain smell in the air.
So the best sesh we had was with Bobby and those guys, where we used the wick. And for that, little glass pipe.
It's funny how
wick, and then you're like, and then you're kind of puffing it, but the flavor and the effect that you got on that was so rich. And you're like, this is what smoking traditional hash is really all about.
And even dudes talking about skunk, talking about diesels, talking about the East Coast. We did confirm we will have both JJ from Top Dog. He's going to get in here. He's going to get in the studio. Him and I had a great conversation. We were actually shout out to Professor P. But we were talking about,
and it was funny because that was your first time really kind of getting in depth with JJ. JJ came over to me. I was hanging out with. Ironically enough, this was a funny story. I met the guy who I indirectly got a diesel cut from over 25 years ago. And JJ comes over and starts talking to us, right? And he starts asking us questions that involve, I think, Professor P. And I was like, just wait for Jerin to get back in. He'll answer any questions you have. And literally, I look over 10 minutes later, and you and JJ are having we got hardcore into that, just phenotype expression that we talk about, and so much about how sour D's not gone. It's just not growing the same way. And him and I just really started. So he's going to be on, and we're going to continue that conversation, and we're really going to get in depth. And then also Skunk VA, he's up north. He's going to come down. He usually tries to see some Red Rock shows in the summer. Don't blame me at all. Yeah, I told him to plug in at my crib.
So we are, and he's, dude, I mean, that's perfect for him. So that'll probably be June-ish, but we confirmed both of those, which was awesome. So just to give you an example, man, there was all kind of, Aficionado was in the house. Gage Green was in the house. Ninja was in the house. Shout out to Ninja.
Caesar, AJ was there. So DC Scrogger, you had a good conversation with DC Scrogger.
So this event was definitely pulling some people. So very cool culture event. These are the kind of events we want to be at more. So if you guys do know about this stuff, again, hit our bookings page. Give us a heads up. Again, can't promise we're going to be there. We try and let you guys know where we're going to be. But I think a lot of our future travel, truly, as opposed to doing these big trips and these blanket travel, it's going to be more going to an event, a specific event, possibly setting up, or at the very least going and networking, and then working kind of around that a bit. So again, don't be afraid to hit that bookings
I was talking
page.
with Chunky Nugs, and he was like, dude, I hotboxed my car with the Jug Dealers one day. And I was like, you did?
That happened.
That's so cool.
That's it. But also he gave us the drinkest syrup I've ever had. You ruined me, Chunk. You ruined me, Chunky.
He did. I gotta get him a couple things.
Speaking of that, Grandpa, I'm addicted now. So Grandpa, you screwed up even reminding me about that. But again, just hey, look, you never know where we're gonna pull up. If we're somewhere geographically to make sense, hey, we'd like to show up. So we were also lucky enough to tour two very high quality, I'm gonna leave them nameless, but two very high quality New Jersey grows. You are gonna see these guys. They are some of the guys that are gonna make it. Funny enough, they are obviously running a lot of our nutrient products, some of the different additives, and even one of them full bases and all. But also, both of them are running our HPS and the HPS combo UV that is just knocking out. We're going to put out some footage that we took in there. We took the Osmo in there.
Maybe we'll put some right now. We'll see.
You know what? I have a bunch. I tend to have a bunch of really good footage. Maybe we'll plop that in.
Let's test the water today, boys. I'm feeling dank.
We're feeling it.
It's a different expression with the HPSs. It's what I've always enjoyed, and not for nothing. I mean, you're starting to see, we got a grow that we know here in town that switched over to LEDs, and they're going to be switching.
Here's the thing, though. I'm still going to say, though, it is going to, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I am still going to say it's about expression. What are you looking for? What genetics are you running? Because we also had a guy that reached out to us saying, no, I just want LED. I just want LED because he's doing all Z.
Yeah, he was. No,
he wasn't. He wasn't even. No, he's not breeding. He's running all Z.
All Z.
He's running all Z's. And by and large, yes.
Didn't he say he was breeding or something with it?
Nope. He's growing nothing but Z. He's growing nothing but Z, and undoubtedly, all that Z was pretty much selected under LED.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty safe assumption. But anyway,
I'm going to grow Z under HPS. Fuck everybody.
You can do that.
You get different expressions.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
And to me, like we always say, it's not right or wrong.
Well, I mean,
it's just different.
Well, it's funny when you when you talk to our good buddy Dane. Dane's the first one to say, I don't even really like it that much.
No,
it doesn't get you high. It grows like shit.
In fact, he goes, it's all about the Z crosses, which shout out to Trike boy. He's running through some Z crosses of anybody I've ever seen. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is interesting to get that Z terp that is really pleasant, coupling it with something that actually gives you a more complex high. And then also having something that has some vigor.
Well, that
as a plant,
that LMNO Z is obviously,
dude. So there's an example right there. That was some of the best herb I have puffed on in a while.
And it was good from both.
And
it was good
smacked.
It was good from Mike and New Terps.
Both of them.
Both of them were awesome.
And they smoked well. They smacked you right in the head. They tasted insane.
That shit got you.
And it was
ripped.
green, dude.
It got you
green.
Ripped.
It was green.
Ripped.
Honestly, those Jersey facilities, and one thing I'd like to really make mention, some of these massive facilities that we're seeing, these 1, 2, 3,000 light facilities that we've seen, those are the people that we really see having a lot of trouble. These guys that are running 200 light grows, 40 to 60 light rooms,
the new models,
high quality, you know what I mean? And they have small, very strong, knowledgeable teams. Man, it was really a pleasure for both of them. And both of those guys are, long time friends of the company, friends of ours, both those facilities, and so proud of seeing what those guys are doing. So stoked seeing them do it with our gear and really, taking their product and differentiating himself from the other stuff that's on the market. So watch out, New Jersey. You're going to see a bunch of stuff growing with our product hitting the shelves.
And remember, HPS is never going to be a double tier building. And I think that's one of the big things where you really see the difference is, I know other than Phenotype Farmer, I know very few people where the second level is as good as the first level. Plain and simple.
Oh, man.
It just doesn't get the attention.
Well, you know what? Here's what's funny. Even to that point, like when I was down in Puerto Rico at my buddy's facility, they run different size blocks on different tiers because of the way that where the ventilation comes in. Again, this just comes to the specific room. If it was designed differently, it wouldn't be the same way. And I'm just like, this is the kind of crap you have to really think about. If you're going to be running, this stuff's dynamic. Scaling is not linear, and this stuff is super dynamic as far as the way that these rooms operate. All right, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and get into what's possibly the most interesting, the dirtiest, the gnarliest, the nastiest thing, and also the most interesting thing that we did the whole trip. So we had a day that we were freestyling, right? We were coming back up from the Jersey Shore. We met up with our boy Dredd. Again, this was a total freestyle.
Yeah, he just reached out in the comments, man.
And so we pick him up and we go to this reservation. And when I say reservation, of course, in my mind, I'm thinking New Mexico, Oklahoma, whatever. No, this thing was like
many miles of reservation.
Right, like wide open spaces. This is like maybe
it was like
a quarter square mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a little piece on a river, a cemetery, a few houses, and historically speaking, it was nothing but.
And it's out on Long Island. Like when you
on Long Island.
When you tell people you're going to the reservation on Long Island, they're like,
"You're seeing it right now."
Well, not only that,
it reminded me of Black Hawk.
Yes.
When you go and all the casinos are stacked together with their dispensaries.
Not only that, pull up just the map showing people that one side of Long Island is Brooklyn and the other side of Long Island is the Hamptons, but there's a hell of a lot in between. Sorry for my ignorance even on that stuff, but it's kind of like laughable, So anyway, and it's a lot of very rural stuff. But it's this little, maybe quarter mile on Long Island, and you run up to, and historically speaking, it was tobacco shops where you could get tax-free tobacco,
cheap gas.
So it's got in that little space 4 big gas stations.
They had
there you go.
They had dollar packs of cigarettes.
So you got on one end literally Brooklyn, all the way on the other end of Long Island is the Hamptons,
Suffolk County. Like if you look up Mastic beaches around where,
but like it's a big, very Long Island.
I don't think people realize how big it is.
Well, I didn't. We're talking hours, guys, to get back into Brooklyn from where we were at.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, it was an hour and a half, 2 hours of traffic. So anyway, we get out there. All these tobacco shops just shifted right over into cannabis shops now. So they do still sell the cheap tobacco, I'm not going to lie, and they have the cheap gas as well.
I'm still murky on what world they operate in because it doesn't.
It's not a world.
It's the reservation world.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's like tracked or monitored. We asked the one guy where the flower's from. He's like, oh yeah, Oklahoma.
No, and without look, I'm not trying to get him in trouble, but I'm telling you right now, I saw several reputable, legit California brands, several reputable, legit Colorado brands, reputable, legit Michigan brands, and like we went through there. Some of them grow their own stuff.
I didn't see any good hash though.
The one spot I thought did actually, it was okay. But that didn't see from what I understand on the weekend, it's literally, you want to talk a bit about getting, well, you can at least get your gas and your grass there. You're going to have to go for the other somewhere else.
The worst was this. I had to get, this was $20
for an eighth. It was on special though.
It was happy hour.
Hey, by the way, everything is on special there.
And this was
okay. Salt medicated coffee.
He sent me this on April 1st, and I just assumed it was April Fool's.
So this
not.
was. So you went into this place, and there was about 50 big jars on the wall, and in the center of all the jars is a jar filled with this, and it just says 43% THC, and I asked the guy, I go, what's that? And he goes, well, it's basically rolled in THCA crystal. And they dye it blue. Grade, in which, if you look,
it's not smoke grade,
but it's green and it's maybe somewhat green in the middle. But
no, it's actually soaked almost all the way through.
All the way through.
Which does freak me out a little bit.
And it smells like straight up like nerds. Like
it's called blue nerds.
It really does smell like.
Gabe was like, let's take a bong hit.
And I would.
Dude, smell this.
I've smelled it. I've smelled it.
Candy, dude.
I've smelled it. I actually am calling bullshit on the THCA. I think it's just blue nerds.
I'm making everybody.
I'm ashamed to say it. We sampled just a little bit. And it's a very weird, racy, weird high. I wish, here's a funny thing. I wish I could actually say it tasted worse than it did.
That's the most shocking part.
I wish I could say it was worse than it was. But me being a glutton for honesty, the smoking experience actually wasn't bad. No road flares.
No.
Pretty good taste on the exhale, and expansion in the lung. Gave me a little bit of a cough, but I like a little lung expansion. No problem there.
It's a distillate buzz.
The distillate high. It's like you're on the crack high THCA pen, and you're just like, dude, it was zooty. It was weird. It was super weird.
It's everything that's wrong with the market.
But to give you guys, we're talking a quarter mile, and we're talking between 30 and 40 dispensaries with a variety of different. I mean, I will say some of the marketing, some of the different things,
infused ketchup, ranch dressing,
everything,
honey mustard,
everything, mayonnaise.
We saw soy
mayonnaise.
Sauce. We got THC infused cups of coffee. Which, by the way, it was delicious coffee.
It's okay.
I liked it.
Gabe doesn't really drink coffee. Everybody does.
I don't really drink coffee, but I thought
I don't really.
What? Because it was chocolatey.
He doesn't know this, but I got him the hot chocolate.
Yum, dirty bastard. Yum. Hey, everybody! This one just came across the desk. This is for the weekend of 4/19/4/20 at Growers Paradise. If you use the code 58 PHIVE and the number 8 at checkout, you get 20% off all NewMill products and seeds. And also go to maximizeyourgrow.com if you're trying to shop online. Again, that's Growers Paradise Special, the weekend of 4/19/4/20 outside of Richmond, Virginia.
But anyway, thank you again, Dredd. Some of the most unique stuff I ever saw. We walked up the whole block, walked into probably 12 or 15 different ones. I'm going to say there's 30 to 40 in totality in this quarter mile. It's basically one strip and kind of a loop.
A quarter mile with 40 dispensaries.
Yeah,
bro, it's insane. I mean, I feel like we've seen a lot. Like been involved with a ton of stuff. Like it puts Broadway at its height. It still puts Broadway at its height to shame.
What was that called? The Green Mile?
The Green Mile. Yeah, it wasn't even.
It was it's more aggressive than that.
Well, here's the thing. The competition, too, they said on the weekends, it's literally, and it's tiny. It's hard to get into, is bumper to bumper getting in and out of there. It obviously, there's enough people going in and buying that it supports it because it's there.
What was the place? Hot Exotics? Was that it?
Top Exotics.
Top Exotics?
Top Exotics. There was some good herb in there. There was some good herb in there.
His Blue Lobster.
Legit.
His blue lobster.
His Chimera. Legit.
Yeah.
Legit.
The Chimera was
legit.
Really, really nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to those guys. They were and then the cool part about that shop too was they had a neat smoking lounge upstairs.
Yeah, they had a smoking lounge upstairs. And it was at a little.
And it looks at literally it's got big windows. It looks at the whole dispensary row.
Like it's cool, man. So and again, basically it was just a bunch of old tobacco, Indian tobacco shop. And I've heard of these places, but you don't have that stuff out west. It's like a real reservation. It's like a big reservation. Whereas out east, it's got these little things. And what's crazy, my buddy always told me, he grew up in New York, and he always said back then they always went to the res to get weed. And I never really got it. Now I do.
Yeah, no, it's wild.
Now I do.
It's wild.
So speaking of New York though, right? I don't think people realize, number one, how big the state is, right? So to get from Brooklyn
took us 7 hours.
7 hours to get across the state.
With a stop, it was 8.
Yeah. With a stop, it was 8. 8 hours to get across the state.
Brooklyn to Buffalo.
And the point is that there's a ton of agriculture. Historically, you got to think that, being on the East Coast like it was, the environment that it has, the amount of rain that it has historically, everything, a lot of the historic, like Elliot Coleman, he's a little bit more north in like Maine and whatnot, but like there's a lot of these guys that have been part of the organic food movement that are obviously sniffing's distance from New York, right? Because you also have a huge market there. So you have a ton of farms and even a lot of these old cut flower facilities and old blackberry and old tomato facilities, a bunch of which have gone belly up, right? Because most of this stuff, unfortunately, has gone to South America. A lot of it, right? Okay, so, and that's both the cut flower industry, the berry industry.
Yeah, we saw
all this stuff, right?
An old rose grow, one right. Old blackberry farm.
But the point is, there's this infrastructure that's out there, and it's all over New York and the East Coast.
Like 500,000 square foot.
Yes.
Huge buildings.
Yes, huge
buildings. For those
buildings.
of you who don't know, that's like 10, 11 acres.
Yes, all under glass.
12
now,
acres.
And in various forms of repair and or disrepair. Some of it technically outdoor, which is just under simple plastic, but no supplemental lighting. You see a lot of auto flowers in that situation, mostly for extract. We saw a few of them, and it was very interesting to see because I hadn't seen some of the attempts that this market and this industry has kind of been dabbling into some of these older,
it's different than a lot of
vacant,
other markets.
Agricultural market.
It's different than a lot of other markets in that respect because a lot of places are either doing indoor with warehouses or else they're building from the ground up. Whereas I've definitely seen more trying to repurpose large ag facilities that did something else in New York.
And I think, and this is where we're seeing this industry now kind of go, and on some level, I don't want to say cut corners, but definitely save some money. You've got the power pulled in, you've got the infrastructure in theory. Now if some of these places have been sitting for too long, you can end up with a bit of a problem, right? But man, we kind of saw
it's still 500,000 square feet.
Yes.
And I think, something that I said is like, you still have like trying to get that up and running is still an incredible undertaking when it comes.
And that's why why I don't call it cutting corners, because it's not.
Yeah,
there's so much.
I think people think that they are because they're like, oh, well, it used to grow X. Cool. And you're like, yeah, but they were allowed to spray pesticides. They were allowed to do all kinds of different things that, like, quite frankly, it's funny because I heard a story about a friend of ours here in town who will remain unnamed, but they've been getting in trouble because they've been getting popped for pesticides in their building.
And you think it's residual?
And I think it could be. It could be.
Here's
residual.
the other thing I've seen down in Florida. Some of these old, specifically with ornamentals, different with food crops because they're held to a different standard. But with these ornamentals, they've just been gassing with like imidacloprid and all this like fluoramide.
Petroleum-based pesticides do not break down without UV.
Right.
And if you have plastic or glass over your buildings that's preventing some of that to get through, then your half-lives are completely different.
Yeah. And not to mention, I feel like some of the bug species around there, because they've been spraying so much hardcore stuff with ornamentals, then you put in either a food crop or cannabis, and you can't use that super hardcore synthetic shit. Well, the bugs are bulletproof, bro. They've been there for years and years taking those sprays. And I saw a spot in Florida, and I saw some really talented growers there that literally got to the point like, there is nothing that we have in our arsenal that we're allowed to use that will touch this stuff, right? So thank you very much for the folks that did let us in those facilities. Cool to see.
Second building, what I thought was interesting was that was an actual glass house, more of what the style that we saw.
Gutter connected. Sorry, but the first one, and again, I don't want to name you, but thank you guys for getting us in. You guys know exactly who you are. Definitely happy to be, happy to get there, get on site and see it. And really, I mean, it's because even when you see the numbers, it's tough to really conceptualize until you get in there and you walk it. You really see it. I think
when you're in a greenhouse and you can't see the other end of the greenhouse, that's really when you're like, oh, okay. Well, this is big.
Because he's like, text me when you're getting up here. I might be in one of the back greenhouses. It'll take me a minute to get up. I get it now. So cool to see that. Thank you guys. I actually think that this is the future for the people that can get into these facilities, that can get them back up to snuff, that can use the environment that they're in. I think they're going to be the ones that actually, if they get there, are going to succeed. I believe that's the future.
That's the way to get the cost down.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, what I've seen in a lot of these buildings is having to really refigure out your irrigation, because you're probably, the one place we went to, they had a giant, like it was the size of a couple dumpsters worth of mixing the nutrients, but that's also because they're feeding 500,000 square feet, the same exact feed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So the specificity is a little bit different when you're taking these places and you're trying to take the old irrigation or rip all the old irrigation out and do it for your own. I mean, it's a monumental task, but shout out to both those guys without naming them. And, you guys are working hard out there and I'm really excited to see,
cool
where
to
it
see.
goes. Yeah.
I really want to see them win.
Yep.
Cause I'd love to see buildings like that full of cannabis. But
be cool. And it's going to happen one day. I have no doubt about that. So then, we kind of kept trucking across. And like we were saying, went to Buffalo Roots. Both JK, and Chris and JK's wife, the hospitality was next level. Thank you guys so much. The food was amazing. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with the bit. They are going to have a customer day, Buffalo Roots specifically, I believe August, like 15th or 16th, that Saturday, definitely that weekend. I'm planning on being out there. So come hang out. They always do a great job with their customer day. Also Harvest Moon, Mike Yosina, he, like you said, he had some, with the Roaring 420s Lounge as well. John, your hospitality was amazing. The burgers were fantastic. Thank you for all you guys.
Really,
and really unique, dude.
Yeah, really cool.
So 120 people fit in this place. It's 2 levels, maybe even 3. It's an old bar. It's right in downtown Buffalo. You go in, you pay a member's fee. You don't buy any herb. They have the 4 herbs that are there or whatever they have that day, and then a couple extracts, and you just get what you want. You can buy some drinks, no booze, of course. They never mix that. You got some sodas, some waters. Like the food's great. Basically where you'd have liquor bottles, it's just a bunch of bongs and rigs and everything else. So great environment. Met some good people there. Chatted for a couple hours. It's karaoke night. May or may have not done karaoke.
I have that on video. He may or may not have done it, but I have it on video.
So if you guys are there, they have like 22,000 members. Mike was telling me, and now granted, they've been out for 2 years. A lot of them are Canadian members because you can pop right over, right? So I believe it's a lifetime membership. But if you guys are in Buffalo, go check it out. The Roaring 420s Lounge.
Super cool spot.
Right in downtown Buffalo. Same thing if you need any New Millennium stuff, any DLI stuff, any Scietetics stuff, either Harvest Moon or Buffalo Roots in the Buffalo area, they will take care of you guys. Thank you for all your hospitality in Buffalo. We'll be back. Buffalo ain't playing, man.
Buffalo is not playing.
Buffalo ain't playing.
I was pretty impressed with the New York scene. I'm excited to spend more time up there because there's a couple places we missed.
And then actually the place in Rochester, didn't you want to shout them out? Yeah.
Sunset Hydro, and I want to say, and they do beer as well.
Yeah, I think it's a brew grow shop.
Yeah,
maybe even maybe a little bit homesteady, which I love it when you get into kind of the more homesteady, type stuff. But I got to be honest, man, it was a pretty epic trip. Again, appreciate everybody that's out there. All the help and appreciation that we get on the road is always next level. So, and again, if you guys have anything that you're looking for us to get out, either, for Gabe's next trip onto the East Coast or, on a larger level for, when we are out and about, do not hesitate to reach out. You can either reach out directly on any of our pages. Obviously, we've got the IG page, this, that, and the other, and that good old booking page. So don't be afraid to hit that up. And man, I'm looking forward to our next time.
Dude, shout out East Coast.
Yeah, like I said, real sour, bro. Born
and raised, and never disappoints ever.
No. The only thing we got close to Philly. We weren't able to get into Philly to get a Philly. Instead, we bopped out to the shore. But next time, Philly, we'll come in and we'll see you.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit different trip. Anyway, hey guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate you tuning in. We've got a couple of big episodes coming up. We've got some big interviews that are coming up. We've got some episodes with some really hardcore information, just as far as, just trying to always bring a high level and a high quality information to you guys. So our effort to that is not going to quit. We will keep up our end. You keep up yours. Keep hitting the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Like and share.
Till next time from the Jug Den.
Peace
out.